Today, Mirza Hashem, we're going to finish the parak, complete this chapter, and we're going to discuss a lot of practical halachot. Some examples. Question over bakashot pratiyot. We daven, we pray each and every day, 3 times a day. There is a formulation, the men of the Great Assembly, the rabbis, put together as a Amidah prayer, as a Shmoneh Esrei prayer. But if a person has a personal need for specific things, he wants to ask about health, prosperity, or other personal issues, where exactly in Judaism we're allowed to incorporate a personal prayer in our silent Amidah, silent prayer? When and how? The next question is the subject of Torah HaTzibur, imposing upon the public. We discussed yesterday examples such as preparation of the Sefer Torah in advance, before the service, in order to avoid people waiting. You need to roll the Torah sometimes from one side to another. It takes some time. And there are other issues that call Torah Tzibur. So the question is, when we pay attention to the Torah Tzibur, an example, imagine we have a great Torah scholar, a great rabbi here, like in David's wedding, right? And everyone already finished the Amidah, and now he's still praying. How long you need to wait for him? Do you need to wait for him, and how long? Because on one hand, you want to show him respect. On the other hand, you do not wish to impose upon the public too much. Another example, I think we mentioned that yesterday, it's a famous Gemara in Tractate Brachot, page 12. The Parashat Balak, this week's Torah portion. So the rabbi said that this week's Torah portion should incorporate in our daily prayer, with all the statements that Bil'am made. How goodly are you, tent of Jacob, you dwelling places, O Israel. They wake up early in the morning, etc., etc. There's a lot of blessings in the parasha. And the rabbi said the reason we don't do that, Torah HaTzibur, we don't want to impose upon the people. So again, this is part of our discussion today. Another part of the discussion is using shofar. As you know, several days ago I was in Israel. And while we are all excited over the engagement of our youngest daughter, Ayala Hana, may God bless her and potential chassan for many years of happiness and good health, we and the other mechutanim, the other party, in search of the right place to have the wedding. And in Israel, it's a big blessing that there are many wedding halls and many needs, especially in Yerushalayim, in Jerusalem area. So we search from one place to another place, etc. While we're searching, we need to attend wedding and to see how they put together the decoration and everything at those beautiful places. So one of the wedding, we noticed something very different. It was a combination of two, the Chatan, if I'm not mistaken, was Yemenite, and the Kala, the bride, was from Russia. And it was 2 guys having the large shofar, blow it while the Chatan walked to the chuppah. Before him, they blow the shofar. And later they did the same to her, which I have to admit, I never saw something like that in the past. Which leads us to another discussion in this daf. What happened to a public fast day? If you remember, in the past several days, we discussed issues of need to have a fast day, such as lack of rain, and we do it in the level of gradation. Remember, we said it starts with individuals, you go for the 3 to 7, 13, etc. So do we use the shofar in those days, in those fast days, and how do we use the shofar? Do we use a trumpet? Do we use the shofar? Etc. What's the difference between the two? Another subject, as you see, today we are totally repleted with subjects. Good morning. It's the idea of happiness versus mourning. For example, when my brother-in-law married my sister, they scheduled a wedding in a certain time, and several days before the wedding, his mother passed. So we are now dealing with the two halachic conflict with two extremes, which is, in one hand, joining together the simcha, on the other hand, act of mourning. How, in which way, we'll be able to reconcile the two extreme differences. So we are now on page 14. 17 lines from the top of the page. Tanei chada, we learn in one braita. Ubarot ומניקות מתענות בראשונות ומתענות באחרונות, ותניא אידך מתענות באחרונות ומתענות בראשונות, ותניא אידך אין מתענות לא בראשונות ולא באחרונות. Here we're dealing with a very specific issue, which later you see a practical halachot. You have a pregnant, a nursing woman. In one hand, we have a public fasting day. Imagine, especially in those days, but can have an application to our times as well. It's a tremendous famine. No rain. And the time goes by, and it's no rain. And it's famine. People, soon you see extreme example how people behave at this type of moment. It's beyond terrible. So we, meaning the rabbis, impose upon the public to go the extra mile, which is to have a public fast day. Uninstitutional, new public fast day. Yet, you have certain exceptions. What do you do with those pregnant women, with those women that nursing babies? They are weak. It's hard for them. So we said in three different sources, three different braitot, three different statements. One said, because we have three different segments of fasts, we have the first, second, and third. If you remember yesterday and day before yesterday, we said we start with just 3, we go for more, for 7, we go for 13. So it's a different stages. So one writer said that it's only by the first and not the last act of fasting. The second one said that the other way, that only the last of the sessions of the fast and not the first. And then we said neither one, not the first, not the last. So how do you reconcile? Is the contradiction between the three sources? Amar Rav Ashi nekot emtsaita beyadach. So I'm now using my book on Rashi, because Rashi said here nekot emtsaita beyadach, klomar taritz debeshalosh emtsaiyot hayu mitanim. So you see it also in the Rambam, in the third parak of Hilchot Ta'anit, and also you see it in Yerushalmi, that basically we go by the middle one, the mitartzu kulu, which means in very short, since we're in a Daf Yomi and we need to catch up a lot of materials, it means that the middle one, they fast. It's not a contradiction between the three. Neither the first nor the last, the middle one. And the first, when you use the term first, this is a little sophisticated. The first, it depends what first you're talking about. An example. I'm one of 8 children. God bless them. Okay? So you call me the first. But what does that mean, the first? I'm the first from the boys. Alright? But I'm not the first of the children. You see the difference? Because of the children, I'm number 4. I have 3 sisters older than me. So again, it's all depend upon how you catch the word first. What do you meant by first? But you see the three brighter to reconcile. So what exactly the first? What these 7 days more stringent than the first one? The difference is that on these days, in addition to all the earlier stringencies, they sound the alarm and they lock the stores. So again, we said yesterday that it's gradation. So you start with individuals, and then you fast, and then you see it's nothing happened. You tell people to reduce their businesses. You start closing stores. You alarm people. It's going gradation. How far you go in act of remorse, repentance, etc. B'may matri'in. The word matri'in can have several connotation. What do you mean by saying a sound or alarm? You meant to say pray. You meant to say blowing the shofar. Teruah, it's one of the staccato that we use for the shofar. Rav Yehuda amar beshofarot. Rav Yehuda said yes. You know what does that mean? They make that the staccato sound of the shofar. That's act of waking up the soul based on the book of Bamidbar, chapter 10. And that basically helped people to make a self-search and return to God. ורב יהודה ברד רב שמואל בר שילת משמי דרב אמר בעננו. עננו, as we explained yesterday, is a special segment that we incorporate in our prayer. Answer God, answer. So this one we add. So again, the difference between them is the word hatra'ah, meaning from the route, from the shoresh of tru'ah, meaning staccato of shofar, or hatra'ah, meaning prayer. There is a very special moment that it's called the moment of, in our simple language, divine providence open the gate to extra supplication, to answer our requests. So for example, the rabbis instituted the prayer of Brich Shmei. It's Aramaic prayer that when we open the ark, we recite that prayer. It's from the Zohar, Parashat Vayakhel. Blessed are you, Master of the universe. Bless, and we ask, grant us good life, grant us sustenance. Right before Shema Yisrael, right before Gadlu, right before we're taking out the Torah, we just open the ark and we say that prayer. Okay? That's called Brich Shmei. As a side note, I was in Israel last week, so I saw a synagogue of German Jews. And I saw the same, by the way, when I was a guest in the kibbutz Yavne, place that my daughter is the head nurse. So I went to my son-in-law to Yeshiva Kerem B'Yavne for Shabbat. I saw the same, they skip it. So there's a book written by Rabbi Reuven Margaliot. He explained why there are those who skip it or change it. Just a side note, it's because either there are segments of personal requests like sustenance, etc., and he feels, there are some who feels that it's incongruous to ask for personal need on Shabbat. Okay. There is another school of thought that said because they use the statement La vela al bar elahin samichna, and we are not depend upon anyone, not the angels, not anyone, but only you, God. Not sons of God, not angels. And the fear of those people is taking it out of context that apply to Christianity, etc. So there are some communities that eliminate all that prayer. Yet others say it, and again it's Aramaic, and it's a reason because the Malachei HaSharet not understand it. But anyway, this is a very special time. The Chazon Ish said, for those who are granted with son, still need to use that nusach, bnin dichrin, davdin reutach. But anyway, there is a special time like Birkat Kohanim, the blessing of the priest that they bless us, opening the ark for Brich Shmei. So the same way, Anenu, answer us, God answer us, is a zman miyuchad, is a special time. Kasal kadatan, man de amar ba'anenu, lo amar bashofarot, man de amar bashofarot, lo amar ba'anenu. So you see here a disputation between Rav Yehuda and Rav, that one said that you cannot do both. Either you use the answer as God answer, or they using the shofarot, the blowing the shofar vehatanya. But we learn in different source, a different braita, en pochatin misheva תעניות על הציבור שבהן 18 התראות וסימן לדבר יריחו. So we learn in different braita that we we don't reduce in those subsequent fast days, 7th fast day, less than the 18, and you see a source for that, the story of Jericho. We all know the story of Jericho, I assume. This is a book of Joshua, and again I'm using my book because Rashi here tells us that דכתיב בשופרות לשנכרינה סימן לדבר, כלומר מתריעים. So again, the way that I understand this Rashi, basically they circle around Jericho 7 times, and we know that the part of Aleinu Leshabeach, the first section, it's composed according to our understanding, our tradition, by Joshua. After they circle around the Jericho 7 times, and miraculously what happened? They blow the shofar and the walls of Jericho collapse. Yes. So we learn from that the same way, the same manner that during the public fast day, you blow the shofar and you want to have those walls against us to collapse the spiritual wall and have our prayer answer. And that's also the Tosfot here have a comment, the different segment, different time when you do that. ויריחו שופרות אבא, ותיובתא למאן דאמר בעלינו. So you see that there are many episodes of the sounding of the shofarot in Jericho. So this is a conclusive refutation of the one who said that according to opinion of Rav, they sound the alarm only by recite that prayer. Answer us, Aneinu. Ela. So rather, the example, the Gemara explains that the dispute must be understood differently. בשופרות, דכולי עלמא לא פליגי דקרא להתראה, כי פליגי בענינו. מר סבר קרא להתראה, ומר סבר לא קרא להתראה. So again, here, and we basically follow here the Ran, how differentiate between the two. One said that is shofarot, sound of the shofar. One says a prayer, aneinu. So we said that Rav Yehuda hold that the word hatra'ah in the Mishnah, it's specific tru'ah in the shofarot, that's the way Ritva said, and not by saying aneinu. And Rav Yehuda Bar Shilat hold the other way around. Now, Leman Damar Ba'aneinu, the one who said that they sound of the alarm by what? By reciting aneinu, answer as God answer, kol sheken b'shofarot. For sure, they can do so with the shofarot. Uman Amar, b'shofarot, they only blow the shofar, but ba'aneinu lo. But they're not called, that they don't use the word aneinu. The community does not sound the alarm by reciting that prayer. So just for a second, I want to make sure for all of you that we are on the same page. So let's open the art called Sidurim. I want to show you the prayer so you see exactly what we are talking about. It's on page 104. I'm holding the art called Sidur, page 104, and just to make sure that we all understand. So you see, on the fast day, the Chazan recite Aneinu at this point, which is, answer us, Hashem, answer us on this day of our fast, etc., etc. So here you see the Chazan, the Shliach Tzibur, the one who represents us when they repeat the Amidah. Now, if you turn to page 108, you see that this is on a fast day. If the Chazan has not said Aneinu earlier, he should insert it here. Okay, so you see here a different, and we are not yet in a practical lachot, but what we are speaking in our subject is that prayer. The difference between using that prayer versus blowing the shofar. The same applied to Mincha in page 238.
So Rabbi, as soon as we finish saying the Amidat, then if you have a request, you wait till you get to...
No, this is a special section, soon we go into practical lachot, that we use only when it's a public fast day.
Okay.
Right.
we are not yet in the subject of personal. Personal, if you want, just to give you a general idea, a night before, let's say if you have a bad dream, and you come to a rabbi and the rabbi said you should fast. So what do? A night before, in a mincha, in the afternoon prayer, at the very end, okay, page 248, or in English 249, you said, God, Master of the universe, I come before you to accept a voluntarily fast for tomorrow, right? And then the following day, you said, Master of the world, it was in the time of the temple existed, if someone sinned, he brought before you an offering, and yet nothing is yet offered in the altar except the fat and blood, yet in your abundant mercy, I have engaged in fast in my own fat and blood, and have diminished, so may it will be like a substitute for an offering. So that's like a personal fast day. Okay. So back to our subject, והתניא ושאר כל מיני פורענויות המתרגשות. It's not only, one may think that we discuss here only lack of rain. No, we are speaking also about what? Other terrible calamity that happened, such as כגון חיכוך, חגב, זבוב וצרעה. For example, the scabs, the plague of locusts, the flies, all kind of וצרעה, ויתושים, terrible mosquitoes. There are some mosquitoes that carry a lot of disease, right? It's a lot of examples. ושילוח נחשים ועקרבים, special horrible snakes, scorpions. It's all kind of things that create destruction, either by the whole vegetation or something that you feel it's clearly from heaven, like the Torah said that happened during the time of the great plague, the great sin, Bamidbar, Book of Numbers, chapter 21, etc. So you see here when the animal clearly have a mission to create damage that Hashem sent them. So לא היו מתריעים, אלא צועקים. So what did they do? They did not מתריעים in that sense, they sounding the alarm, which we understand it either shofar or pray, but only what they do? The one mouth, they pray. צעקה בפה, התראה בשופרות. So you see, צעקה, it's a prayer. It's used in your mouth, that prayer, Aneinu. Hatra'ah, meaning they have this sounding of alarm, must be with the shofarot. So the Gemara said, no, Tanaihi. It's disputation between the Tanaim. Ditnan. Al elu matri'in b'Shabbat. That's something we're going to study on page 19, in Hashem. In a situation of the Shabbat, crisis, certain calamity, we sound the alarm, even on Shabbat. Al Irshi Kifua Gais, all of a sudden there is a city that enemies came and surrounded the city. Or Nahar, God forbid, is suddenly flooded by a river. Val Sfina Metorefet Bayam. And again, a ship that toasted about the sea, God forbid, that it's a tremendous crisis. So the Gemara in Chulin 64 said it's like mixing eggs. You know, you have the yellow, you have the white. The moment it starts almost mixing, and you don't know the result, you know, the very beginning, that's the feeling of tumultuous. You don't know how the situation. At the time they do it, even the sound of alarm on Shabbat. Rabbi Yossi Omer, אבל לא לצעקה. Rabbi Yossi said an alarm may be sounded on Shabbat to summon help, but it may not be sounded for crying out to God. B'mai. How? Ilema b'shofarot, shofarot b'Shabbat mishari. So if you tell me that they use the shofar, we have the rabbinic rules, as we learn in Rosh Hashanah, page 29, that we do not sound the shofar on Shabbat. And you see it in the practical halachot in Taf Kuf Tzadik Vav, that we don't do that. El alav ba'aneinu, you have to say by the prayer in our lips, saying, answer us God, answer. V'karla atra. So you see that they use the word atra, shma mina. So the Magen Avraham in Taf Kuf Ayin Vav said that in a time of we as Ashkenazim, We don't do that in the time of fast. Sfaradim does that, meaning, right, Gil? Yeah. When they have a fast days, they also sound the shofar. The Ran said that he brought Yerushalmi, etc., said that that's a common practice among the Sfaradim. I personally don't understand why we as Ashkenazim don't do that. But anyway, the Magen Avraham already asked this question in Tav Kufayin Vav. Anyway, Bishnei Rabbi Yehuda Nesiah Havatzara. In the year of Rabbi Yehuda Nesiah, Rabbi Yehuda Nesiah is the grandson of the famous Rebbe, the Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, but he carried that name. So it was a time of trouble. According to Rashi and the Tosfot, it was an enemy, a plague, but in addition to not having rain. Timbi, Gazal Tlat Esrei Ta'niyot, should never happen ever. But he rules that they should have these subsequent 13 fast days, which is the very severe, very, very serious imposing upon public to create the subsequent of 13 fast days. So, velo e'ani, and unfortunately, nothing happened, nothing changed. Savar lemigzar tfei. So he thought to do what? To continue on. Amar le Rabbi Ami. Rabbi Ami said to him, no, הרי אמרו אם מטריחים את הציבור יותר מדי. Wait a second. We do not trouble the community excessively. We do not impose upon people too much. In other words, the wisdom of Chazal, the wisdom of our sages, is to have limitations. How much you can impose upon people. You cannot overdo it. There is a point that you have to say, that's the red line. We don't cross it. We don't ask people to do more than that. All right? We don't want to break up bridges. This is the straw that can break the camel. We don't want to go there. As we said earlier, it was a school of thought. We learn in Gemara and Brachot well to have this week's Parasha Balak every day. And we said the only reason we don't do that is because we don't want to have the service too long. So there is a concept of how much can people take. Now the question is, why is that? In general, there is a Kabbalistic concept that we learned the other day from Tosfot Yom Tov that said that there is a equivalent to 13 attributes of faith, 13 attributes of God. The whole idea of God full of compassion and mercy that we said at the time of supplication is in relevance to the 13 acts of fast day, but that's the borderline. You don't cross it. So Rabbi Ami said, don't impose upon the public more than that. So there is now a different school of thought. Why Rabbi Ami said it? According to Rashi, Amar Rabbi Abba Breder Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Rabbi Ami Damar Garmed Avad. Oh, he cared for his belly. He doesn't want to fast anymore. Right? That's one school of thought. But there are others who said no. He said that not on his name. He said it not on behalf of Rabbi Yochanan. He said that thought on himself. In other words, it's not something that Rabbi Yochanan instituted. He felt that way. אלא הכי אמר רבי חייא בר אבא אמר רבי יוחנן לא שנו אלא לגשמים אבל נשאר מיני פורענויות מתענים והולכים עד שיענו מן השמיים. So here we differentiate between lack of rain or other act of public fast day. So when it's come to rain, need for rain, you go to a certain time and then you pass the 13 is no longer fast day. Versus, God forbid, other crises that occurred, then you can go on more than 13. So you see here the very delicate, very sensitive mindset of the rabbis. And this is a subject for just a moment. Allow me to elaborate on that. It's the whole concept of mindset of rabbis. Many times, unfortunately, people misconstrue it. They think that the rabbis are basically the same as us, because in our religion we all friends and we all students and we all learn from each other. So people sometimes feels that my thought and the scholar's thought and the rabbi's thought is the same. So when it's come to certain questions, I can ask, but then I make up my mind. It's incorrect approach. An example is a famous story about Rabbi Aaron Kotler, the great rabbi close to us in Lakewood, New Jersey. He was a great, may rest in peace, was a great scholar. He was a fellow who went overseas to England for family weddings. And while he was in the airport, close to the boarding time, someone informed Rabbi Kotler that he lost a family member. That fellow was about to go to a family simcha, to a family celebration in England. And a rational thought is to contact him, to pull him out of the plane, bring him back for the sorrow. He lost one of his family members. So they brought it before Rabbi Kotler, and Rabbi Kotler said, no, let him fly for the family's wedding. Makes no sense. You know why? Because when he arrived in London, someone already will tell him that he lost his loved one and he needs to return. So it doesn't make any sense. But this, you see the dakuyot, the beauty of the Torah scholars. We do not understand always the mindset, and only giant like him can say it. But later we understand the mindset in that case. It was the issue of pikuach nefesh. That person was emotionally was very fragile. And the point is, if you tell him now, it can create really a pikuach nefesh. He will be totally broke and can have the effect on his mental state, and even go to the next step in the sense of insanity. So in that sense, the Rabbi Kotler in his wisdom preferred to have him adjusted by all those hours on the plane, back and forth, and then we'll be able to accept the God inscrutable will. So in other words, the huge change between simcha and sadness, happiness and sorrow, needs to have a period of time, and only giants like him understand. But you see it a lot in rabbinic responsa versus the doctor's responsa, that it's not always go the same mindset. So again, that's the way the rabbis think, that there is a limitation. And when it's come to rain, it has to be a limit of 13. When it's come to other thing, you can extend it to more than that. Soon you see another reason. תניא המאחד, כשאמרו 3 וכשאמרו 7 לא אמרו אלא לגשמים, אבל ישר מיני פורניות מתענים והולכין עד שיענו. למה תהב דתובתא דרבי עמי? אמר לך רבי עמי תנאי דתניא, אין גוזרים יותר מ13 תענית על הציבור, לפי שמתרצחים את הציבור יותר מדי דברי רבי. So Rabbi said a reason, we don't impose upon public more than they can take. Okay? רבן שמעון גמליאל אומר, לא מן השם הוא זה, אלא מפני שיצא זמנה של רבייה. He said, you know what? It's a very different reason. It's not because we don't want to impose upon public, but because it is lack of effectiveness. Why? Let's think together. There is a season, right? You know the Vivaldi, 4 seasons, right? 4 different seasons, right? So there's a season for everything, like King Solomon said in the Proverbs. Now, there is a season that we need rain. There's a season that rain can be terribly damaged. So therefore, Zman Revi'ah, a certain time that it fertilizes all the crops, this is a certain time. You pass the 13 subsequent fast days, you already passed the proper time. Right? So you see here the whole dynamic of asking for help. There's one school of thought that said that you don't impose upon the public too much. Another school of thought, it's because it passed due time, it's ineffective to continue the prayer. All right? And for Dr. Friedman's and others that asked the question, we just passed those crises of the 3 missing boys. And he asked why we pray all the time. we have many responses of rabbis that we pray and the prayer achieve in so many ways things, we just don't understand how exactly it works sometimes. But there's no such a thing, prayer in vain. And we also learn a point of unity in, unfortunately, but it was in time of crisis, because the way that people thinking, unfortunately, is when it's come to other people's crisis, we treat it differently than it's come to my personal calamity. People treat it in a very different way, it's a famous story about, I heard it from Rabbi Shalom Shvadron. He was the famous Yerushalmi Maggid. So he said it was a lady that she used to go around all the time, and anything that happened, she always used to say, it's all good, it's all for the best. And always said that. Sometimes it's not really appropriate, but she used to say it all the time. And one time he said that there's a little boy in the neighborhood somehow fell on his face and broke his nose, and the blood was running, etc., etc. And the Rabbi Shvadron's wife and him together carry that boy and put something temporarily, and they need to rush him to the hospital. And that lady was running around that neighborhood. Listen to this. So she saw them all upset and carried that little child, and she, like always, said, God will help, don't worry, everything is fine, everything will be okay, etc., etc. Suddenly, his wife said to her, you know who is this little boy that we rush? It's your grandson. And that lady all of a sudden turned around and she screamed like crazy, and she asked like state of insanity. Mm-hmm. Which again proved to us that when it's come to someone else, it's very easy to say, don't worry, everything will be fine, etc., etc. Right? It's a Gemara in Gittin, Gittin 58, speaks about this little boy, famous story about Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha. So he was a little boy, and was a great rabbi by the name of Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania, who was one of the wealthy people. As you know, there are rabbis who are very poor and there are rabbis who are very rich. So it can be both. So he saw him, he was in prison by the enemy, this little boy. So he saw him. So he said, what's going to happen? Everything will be fine. So this little boy quoted a line from the Tanakh. And that line, Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania responded and says, this boy is going to be a great Torah scholar and teacher, because he said to him in that line, look, you, Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania, entered to his jail and he said, we should schedule a day of prayer for you. And this little boy used implying a line from the Tanakh that no, you are wealthy. Instead of making a day of prayer, you opened your bank account and just paid.
Bail me out.
Right, well, bail me out. So, right? So everyone has a job in this world, and everyone should make his own self-search. Shalchu le'bnei Ninveh leRebbi. People of the city of Ninveh sent to Rebbe. Kegon anan da'afilu b'tkufat Tammuz be'inan mitra. Here we are living in the city of Ninveh, even in the summertime, we are in need of rain. Heichen ha'avim. What should we do? Should we make a special request? Ki yichidim daminan kerabim daminan. Are we treated as individual who has a special request for rain, or we treat it as a public need? Ki yichidim daminan ubeshomei tefillah. If we treat it as individual, you remember I show you in the prayer book that in doing the prayer of shomei tefillah, individual can ask for their personal needs. So in the winter time, we incorporate v'tem talumatar in the blessing of the shanim. But shomei tefillah, people can ask for all the needs. So Gilbert, for you, that's the location. If someone has a special needs, he can incorporate it there. For sure, there is a Gemara in Avodah Zarah that said that in every segment you have to incorporate the proper needs. So for example, if you have the blessing for the shanim, for the prosperity, for livelihood, over there you ask for that. And when you need prayer for the sick people, there is Refa'enu. But there is a school of thought that said that in Shomei Tefillah you incorporate all different personal needs within that segment.
What about Elokai Neshama, the last paragraph?
There are those who do it after the Amidah. In other words, is a two different school of thought. I didn't want to go much on that. It's Gemara in Avodah Zarah, page 8, and Gemara in Brachot. The question is, we have the institution of the Amidah, which the men of the Great Assembly put together. So it's one school of thought that said everything in the personal, postpone it for the very end. Is a paragraph at the very end, Elokai Neshama, you incorporate there.
Right.
There is another school of thought, and you see it also in our prayer book, in the Sidurim, that you put it in a specific section. So for example, as we said, for this healing, you do it on Refa'enu, etc., and it's all applied to a silent Amidah. All those discussion of personal need apply to a silent Amidah. So it can go either way. So he said, since you live in Nineveh, you live far away and you are like a special section, you cannot put a global rules just for one geographic place in the world, Nineveh, that they have a need for rain in the summertime in Tammuz. So for them, you incorporate like individual in Shomei Tefillah, we need in our city, in our location of Nineveh, we need rain. Meitive, Amar Rabbi Yehuda Eimatai. Rabbi Yehuda said, when we have this subsequent fast day for rain, the way that Mishnah tell us that we start in the month of Kislev, Rashi said, and you stop all this segment of fast when it's beginning of Nisan. That's the Rashi view. Tosfot said no. Tosfot said that it's from 7 of Cheshvan up to the eve of Pesach. Anyway, Bizman Shashanim Ketiknan, when it's everything in the nature is in a proper order. V'Yisrael Shruin al Matan, and our nation is in our land. Aval Bazman Hazeh, that the season constantly in change, and we are scattered around the world. Hakol lefi hashanim, everything has to go by the proper year. Hakol lefi hamekomot, it's all depend upon location. There are certain places that need in the springtime rain. There are certain places in the different. Hakol lefi hazman. Amar le matnita leramit alei de Rabbi Tanau Palik. So he is a Tanakh and he disputes others. Maya ve'ala. Rav Nachman amar b'kat hashanim. Rav Shesh amar b'shomei tefillah. B'ilcheda b'shomei tefillah. That's part of what I told David. That they, according to halacha, we do it in shomei tefillah. There is a famous Rosh who said that we have to differentiate between certain cities. For example, the large city like Nineveh and other cities. He tried to say all the Eretz Ashkenaz, all these places of the European Ashkenazi, etc., etc. But later on he backed out, and the people in his city did not accept it. So we don't go by that Rosh. Anyway, Bashani Matim Chashecha. So we said that it's in a certain process. So what do we do? And they Bashani, which means on Monday they open their door a little until the evening. So again, you cannot differentiate between people, and therefore it's act of sadness. So people will see the food and create sorrow. However, on Thursday you open in honor of Shabbat, that people need to purchase things for Shabbat. But it showed the sensitivity of people, how much they care for feeling of other people. You open the store a little bit, not to have temptation of certain people, not to have a bad feeling. When I was in Israel, we attended the funeral of an elderly righteous lady, pious lady. And the story goes that, and this is a not exceptionally different by many ways, that you said that when she was a little girl, they lived in their apartment, and her mother noticed that at the middle of the night she used to roll out of her bed and sleep on the floor, and she did it all the times. So one time the mother rebuked her and said, I want to know why you all the times doing that. It's a little girl, 9 years old or whatever. So when the mother pushed her hard, she said that same time we have a guests, and we live in a small apartment, and there's not enough room for the guest. And I want my body to get used sleeping on the floor. So when we have a guest, I don't have an issue to sleep at night. So it shows a personality and the idea of people who are total unselfish when it's come to the hospitality of caring for other people. What is the meaning of this? בשני מתאים חשיכה ובחמישי כל היום מפני כבוד השבת. So it means even on Thursday you don't totally open the store או דילמה. However, there is another view which is בשני מתאים ובחמישי פותחים כל היום כולו. So the question is, on Thursday do you totally open the store or not? משמע דתניא, come and hear from different writer, בשני מתאים עד הערב ובחמישי פותחים כל היום כולו מפני כבוד השבת. Again, on Monday we opened a little bit the door of our stores. On Thursday we open totally in order to prepare for Shabbat. היו לו שני פתחים. If he has to his store 2 different entrances, פותח אחד ונועל אחד, you open one, enter and you close the other. היה לו הצטבע כנגד פתחו, if it was a bench across from his entrance, פותח כדרכו ואינו חושש. Because that bench locked the entrance and therefore it's not totally open for the public. So Rashi here said that they have to speak, this speaks about Monday. The Rambam in Ilchot Ta'aniyot chapter 3 said no, that specifically that applied to Thursday. Avu elu velo na'anu. Unfortunately, if this 7th fast day passed and is still no answer from heaven, should never happen. But now they reduce business, they reduce transactions, they reduce building, reduce planting, they act as a serious act of sorrow. Tana, how you do that? Bebinyan, when it's come to building, binyan shel simcha, something that you do that create gladness and happiness. This type of constructions. Good morning, Dr. Friedman. Neti'ah shel simcha. Planting is something that creates a great joy by doing it. And here an example. Ezeu binyan shel simcha. Give me an example of building something that creates happiness. Ze aboneh bet chatnut lebno. Someone who built a house, right, for his son. His son is about to get married. In Israel, in Rosh Hashanah, they used to do it a lot, right? Neti'ah shel simcha. Give me a planting that creates happiness. זה הנוטע בברנקי של מלכים. So in those days they have a tradition. They planting a tree. It's act of mazel, act of good fortune in a way, an implication of good fortune. So they did it when it's happiness. Nowadays you see the JNF and people like that say, oh, you have now a simcha, buy a tree in Israel, right? So anyway, there are those who does that. The Mishnah Berurah said in Tafkuf Ein Hey, he said that that's a beit chatanut. So it depends upon how you do it. If you do it for renovation purposes, you don't do it. It all depends what exactly you have in your mind when you do this type of constructions work. Next one was bishilat shalom, when you greet your fellow. So that's a reduction. In other words, you don't greet people don't greet each other the same manners. So here we have to differentiate. This is very delicate, very sensitive. Listen carefully. תנו רבן לחברים אין שלט שלום ביניהם, המארץ ששואלים, מחזירים להם. So you have to differentiate between Torah scholars and other Torah scholars among themselves. When it's such a time of sorrow, they don't greet each other, meaning they are in a great agony, like we're doing in Tisha B'Av. However, people who are not careful in mitzvot, people who are ignorant, who are not educated, so it's defeated the purposes, because they think that you don't like them anymore, that you don't greet them, you don't say good morning, you don't say hello to them, right?
Or you're being arrogant, or
being arrogant, or you're not friendly, right? So you have to be careful with them. So they said, "B'safar afar u'b'koved rosh." You answer them, but not in the regular manners, because it's still a time of sorrow. והן מתעטפים ויושבים כבלים ומדמדין, and the Torah scholars wrap themselves and sit like a mourner, כי בני אדם מנזופים למקום עד שיחמור עליהם מן השמיים. So they are basically wrap up until they are shown mercy from heaven. אמר רבי אלעזר, אם אדם חשוב רשאי ליפול על פניו, אלא אם כן נענה כיהושע בן נון. He says the Torah scholar should be careful. Why? So the Maharsha said in the name of Yerushalmi, because if he'll not answer, people said that most probably he's a sinner. So you have to be careful because the people will watch you. So only if you're a giant like Joshua, was a great man. So שנאמר, ויאמר השם ליהושע, קום לך, למה זה אתה נופל לפניך? They said in Joshua chapter 7 that he cried because he lost soldiers in the second battle of city of Ai. Etc. So God told him, why you are fall on your face, wake up, etc. So that's the level of answer, in the level of spirituality of Joshua. ואמר רבי אלעזר, אין אדם חשוב רשע לחגוג שק. Also, a Torah scholar should be careful when he act in an act of sackcloth, a sign of mourning. אלא אם כן נענק יורם בן אחאב. שנאמר, ויהי כשמוע המלך דברי אישה ויקרא את בגדיו ועובר לחומה וירעם ונעסק על בשרו. So that's a horrible text in the book of Kings, second book of Kings, chapter 3. It was a famine in Shomron, and it was a woman that hid her son, and it's a terrible story that we don't even want to go there. It was the curse that they eat the flesh of their own children. It was a horrible story, and Yoram was one of the northern evil kings, etc., etc. It was a curse. If you want to read more, read the book of Kings, chapter 6. ואמר רבי אלעזר, לא הכל בקריאה ולא הכל בנפילה. Not everyone tore the garment, not everyone fell on their faces. משה ואהרון בנפילה, יהושע וכלב בקריאה. Devil of Moses and Aaron, that's the highest of the highest. They fall on the ground, as the Torah tells us. Joshua and Caleb, they tore the garments. So remember the story of the spies. Moshe ואהרון בנפילה דכתיב, ויפול משה ואהרון על פניהם. He said in the spies in the book of Numbers, chapter 14, that they fall on the faces. Joshua and Caleb, יהושע וכלב בקריאה דכתיב, יהושע וכלב בנפילה קראו בגדיהם. They said there that they tore the garment. So you see a difference in the level. מתקיף לרבי זרע challenge that, ואיתם הרבי שמואל בר נחמני, יהיה בכתיב יהושע כדי כאמר. So it means that Joshua tore his garment and not fall on his face. הש דכתיב ויהושע, you add the letter Vav with Yehoshua, Ha veha Avid, which means he did both. He fell on his face and tore his garment. ואמר רבי אלעזר, לא הכל בקימה ולא הכל בהשתחוויה. So now we talk the other way around, when in time of redemption, so all the other nations recognize us and our greatness. So this is the time of salvation, the time of the end of the days. So they said, Melachim bekima, the kings will greet us by standing up for us. Vesarim bishtachvaya. It's all meaning the whole nation will recognize the truth of monotheistic God and our truth of God. Melachim bekima dechtiv. They said in Isaiah chapter 49, Ko amar Hashem kol Yisrael b'kedosho. This is the way of Lord, Redeemer of Israel, His holy one. 15. לבזון נפש, למתאב גוי עבד מושלים, מלכים יראו וקמו. ושרים להשתחוויה, דכתיב ושרים להשתחוו. מה תקיף לרבי זרע ביתם, הרבי שמואל בר נחמניה, וכתיב ושרים להשתחוו, כדאי כאמר. שדכתיב שרים והשתחוו, והאבוד. So how he explained, אמר רב נחמן בר יצחק אף אני אומר לו, הכל להוראה ולא הכל לשמחה. Now we differentiate between the light and a gladness. צדיקים להוראה, ישרים לשמחה. You have to differentiate between righteous people and yesharim. Yesharim in a simple way, it's upright people or honest people. So tzadikim lo ra dichtiv or zawal tzadik v'yishrem simcha dichtiv v'yishrem simcha. So here we have a difference between Rashi and Maharsha. Rashi said that lesimcha yisharim are different tzadikim. That upright is better. It's a highest level than the righteous. The Maharsha brought the Rashba that said that it's the other. So it's a two different madrigot. Either one top of the other, etc. So we explained that, or the word light, meaning is a spiritual light. It's applied to Olam Haba. Simcha is a physical. Tzaddik, or righteous people, it speaks about light at the end of the days, which speaks about afterlife. Olam Haba, that's a spiritual joyness. And we explained that there is a difference between Sason and Simcha. Sason, it's a musag ruchani, it's a spiritual aspect. Simcha, it's more gashmi, it's more physical aspect. So it's a two different categories. And again, both explanation can go either way. Hadran alach me'matai. Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 576. If a city is surrounded by an enemy, army, or threatened by overflowing river, or if a boat is tossed about at sea, or even a single individual is in mortal danger, the community cries out and offers special supplication even on Shabbat, as we saw recently with the teenager that captured there until we heard the bad news. But they are not sound the shofar. However, they may sound the shofar to summon people to assist in the rescue efforts. That's basically the Tana follow Rabbi Yossi. We said that in the subsequent fast days, we don't impose upon the public, more than 13. That's Shulchan Aruch 575. If the community's prayer have not been answered after the 13 fasts, the rabbinic court may not decree additional fasts. Basically, it's applied to a fast that decree on account of drought, meaning no rain. However, if they're imposed due to, God forbid, some other calamity, the rabbinic court may continue to decree until the trouble has passed. So again, we have to differentiate between our times and those days. In places where the rainy season does not parallel that Eretz Israel, if the rain is not falling when it should, individual will embark on a series of 3 fasts, and then you go to the next level, which is the rabbinic court go further and impose upon the public. We talk about Adam Chashuv, an important person. That's Shulchan Aruch 131. An important person is not permitted to fall on his face when he prays in public. That's the Taz, reciting Rosh, on behalf of the community until he's certain that he will be answered, because if it's not level of Yoshua, people misconstrue that and belittle him. The Pri Chadash said that one may that not fall on face even if he's praying on his own behalf. But the key is, as a public person, which especially if it's a Torah scholar, has to be careful of the reaction of people, how people take it. Hadran alach mematan.
Boyachem leshuloim malachai yeshuloim malachai